Professor Walls indicates that without memory, we have no past. And if we have lost our past, then we lose our identity. If this assertion is true, then it is imperative that as African Christians, we understand our past in order to reflect a true identity of who we are and what God has called us to be. This series, The Footprints of Jesus in Africa, seeks to highlight certain African Christians through whom God has worked to shape the course of Christian history, not just in Africa, but in the Church Universal. I hope you'll be blessed as you watch these narrations.
Ethiopia, hitherto known as the Aksum Kingdom, is like another ancient African country, Egypt. They are both very predominant in the scriptures. In fact, well before God called Abraham and established his covenant with Abraham, Ethiopia was a well-established kingdom. The covenant that God established with Abraham was to be a blessing to the ends of the world, the other Gentile nations of the world, through the seed of Abraham. What we want to know today is to see how this blessing of God through the seed of Abraham permeated the African continent and how it got to Africa. And our focus is going to be on Ethiopia. The truth is that the church in Africa had to deal with the issue of Christianity being a white man's religion. Because the missionaries came, it is assumed that the missionaries who came with the Bible also came with political motives, and they were ill-intended to rob Africa of the treasures they had. And in doing so, they introduced us to Christianity. This thought has had a lot of influence on people in Africa, so much so that even bishops have fallen for that. You would hear there's a famous statement that Bishop Desmond Tutu said, he said that when the missionaries came, we had the lands and then they had the Bible. And then they said, let us close our eyes and pray. And when we closed our eyes and opened them, we had the Bible and they had the lands. What we'll be doing today is to look at how and when the blessings of Abraham through Christ Jesus, the gospel, got to Africa. And like I said, our focus is going to be on Ethiopia. The first period of the Aksum Kingdom was the period between the 4th century, as far as the Christianity coming into Ethiopia is concerned. It was between the 4th and then the 6th century. It was believed that Christianity came into Ethiopia when the Ethiopian eunuch, who is mentioned in Acts chapter 8, was converted by Philip, and then he brought Christianity to Ethiopia in the 1st century. However, there is no enough material evidence to prove this. What we know through evidence of literature is that Christianity became predominant in Ethiopia, the Aksum Kingdom, when King Ezena, who was the king of Aksum, the Aksum Kingdom, converted to Christianity, and then he made Christianity a state religion. So Ethiopia is among the few first nations to declare Christianity as a state or as a national religion. This kingdom saw churches being built, but although it is difficult to know whether or not churches were being built prior to this era, we have two church-like structures that can be pointed to the pre-Aksum era. Now, the Aksum era ended in a decline when the Arab invaded the kingdom. They cut the access of the Aksum people to the Red Sea, which gave them access to markets that came by the Red Sea. So the end of the Aksum Kingdom was a decline, and their natural resources like ivory and gold were also depleted. This gave way for the Zangwe dynasty, who ruled between the 12th century and then the 13th century. So there is first of all the Aksum period, and then there is the post-Aksum era, and then there is the the Zegwe dynasty period. The Zegwe dynasty period is named after the Zegwe dynasty. They ruled the Aksum kingdom between the 12th and then the 13th century AD. So the Zagwe kingdom succeeded the post-Aksum kingdom. The Zagwe kingdom was named after the Zagwe dynasty. This period saw the Zagwe dynasty react properly towards the church. What they did was to help establish churches. In fact, there is a church in Lalibela which was named after one of the kings of the Zagwe dynasty, the Zagwe era. However, the last Zagwe king was killed by Amlak. Amlak claimed to have come from the union between the biblical Solomon and Sheba. So the era that saw Amlak and his descendants rule Aksum kingdom was known as the Solomonic kingdom. This particular era saw the powers which ruled the kingdom give a lot of gifts to the church. So all I'm trying to say is that for a very long time, within all of this number of years, churches were already being established in Ethiopia, and the kingdoms which came and went away all had an impact on the church. The last of the 8 historical periods of the Ethiopian history, as far as the church is concerned, ended in the 19th century with the last Solomonic era. And so it is important to note that the church had begun already in the 4th century when King Exana, who was converted and became a Christian, made Christianity a state religion for the people of Ethiopia. It is interesting to note also that the first missionaries to come to Africa came in 1840. Yes, and so that was about some 16, 17 centuries ago when the church had already been established properly in Ethiopia. So it is interesting to note that. Again, I would like to talk about a very important symbol in the Ethiopian kingdom, which is their coin. The Ethiopian coin, or the Aksum, like properly called, because it was the Aksum kingdom before it became Ethiopia, properly called. The coin is very interesting and very unique because it gives us historical lessons about the people of Aksum and their rulers, because normally you would see the portraits of their rulers on the coins. The interesting thing is that these coins were inscribed in Greek languages and the Ethiopic languages, which points us towards that the Aksum people were literate in these Greek languages and their native language. Initially, their coins had half crescent on it because the Aksum people ascribed to the religions of the Arab people, so they had a crescent on their coins. However, after King Exena had converted and became a Christian, he gave a very strong statement to the fact that Christianity had become something that is now welcome in the kingdom of Aksum, which is now Ethiopia. What he did was that he replaced all the crescent on the coins with the cross, and that is a very strong statement to make. And it tells us that the people of Ethiopia had embraced Christianity fully, because at this point in time the church or Christianity had become a state religion in the kingdom of Aksum. Another interesting thing about the coins of the Aksum people was that some of the coins were crafted in gold, others were in silver and in copper. And the gold coins were meant for international trade with their international trading partners. However, the copper and the silver were meant for local transactions, and these had Christian symbols and inscriptions and quotes on them. For instance, the copper coins and the silver coins had inscriptions like he conquers through Christ, joy and peace to the people. These were things that were common within the Christian faith. And so another huge statement was made by the king and the people of Ethiopia by the mere inscriptions on their coins. It is interesting to note that. So all we have been saying so far is that the church, proud to the coming of the missionaries, and even prior to the coming of the missionaries, the coming of Portugal, of the Portuguese, who came in 1471 for trading purposes, the church had already made inroads into Ethiopia, which stands for Africa. The church had already been established in Africa. And I've pointed out to you that the 8 different periods that marked the historical journey of the Aksum people or Ethiopia had rulers who came and interacted differently and favorably so with the church that existed in these historical periods. I've also pointed out to you that when King Ezana converted and became a Christian in the 4th century, he made a very emphatic statement about Christianity becoming a state religion in Ethiopia by inscribing on the coins the symbol of the cross, and also inscribing on them words and quotes about Christianity, joy, peace, conquering through Christ, and all of that. So I think in conclusion, it would be absurd for anyone to think that it was the Europeans who came and then brought Christianity to Africa, because Christianity had already made inroads in the 4th century. So before the European came for trading purposes, Christianity had already been established in Africa. It is interesting that the period between the 4th or the 6th century to when the first Portuguese came to Africa was a period that spanned between 15 or 16 centuries. So in conclusion, I've pointed out to you that before the missionaries ever came in 1870, the church had already been established in the 4th century in Ethiopia, established because King Ezana had converted and become a Christian. And I've also shown you that over the 8 periods where different kings came on the scene and left, they are all interacted with the church because the church had already been established properly and had become an institution where people could relate with. So in conclusion, it was necessary for me to have taken you through the periods of the historical period of the Aksum people, because it points to us that the emperors who came, the kings who came in all of these respective kingdoms had something to do with the church. Either a church was being built in their name, or they were giving gifts to the church, or they were helping promote the construction of churches in all the periods that we've seen regarding the history of the Aksum people. Now it is interesting to know that the Europeans came in the 15th century. For anyone to say then that it was the Europeans that brought Christianity to Africa would be a little absurd, because prior to that, Christianity had been established in the 4th century when King Ezana became a Christian. He converted and became a Christian, and then made Ethiopia one of the few nations to have decided that Christianity should become a state religion. And so it is interesting to note also that he then went forward to inscribe on their coins symbols of the cross. By so doing, he made a very emphatic statement about Christianity within the culture of the people. So in conclusion, I think it will be difficult for us to ascribe Christianity to the Europeans. And even if they were the ones who brought Christianity to to Africa, it wasn't a religion that was exclusive to them. It's something that they also had and had to propagate it, because it is a tenet in Christianity that we propagate the gospel. But the truth is that is not even the case. It wasn't the Europeans that brought Christianity to Africa, because they came in the 15th century. But Christianity had long been established in the 4th century when King Ezana became a full-fledged Christian and decided that Christianity should become the state religion within that particular kingdom.